walked through the metal corridors of the academy, his dark eyes watching everything. The corridors were clean and cold. Everything was made of steel or crystal. The walls glowed with soft light from panels he did not understand. He had been here for 3 weeks, and he still felt like he did not belong. But he needed to belong. His mission depended on it. The classroom was large and circular. Students from many different species sat in rows. Some had skin that looked like scales. Some had bodies made of crystal. Some had tentacles instead of arms. They all turned to look at as he took a seat in the back row. He was the only human here. He knew they were curious about him. He did not care. Curiosity was good. Curiosity meant they did not suspect. Professor entered the room. He was purple-skinned with a body shaped like a human but taller. He wore clothes that shimmered with colors had never seen before. The professor moved to the front of the room and touched a panel on the wall. A large screen appeared in the air, floating where everyone could see it. "Today we study Earth," said. His voice was calm and careful. The most dangerous planet known to our science." Felt his chest grow tight, but he kept his face empty. He picked up his writing tablet and prepared to take notes like a good student. Touched the panel again. Images appeared on the screen. Saw mountains so tall they disappeared into clouds. He saw storms that moved across oceans like living things. The lightning in those storms was bigger than buildings. He saw forests so thick and green that the sky disappeared. "Earth's surface is covered with life," explained. "But not the gentle life you see on most worlds. Earth's life is designed for violence. Predators hunt predators. Plants have poisons to kill anything that tries to eat them. The very water on Earth can kill if you are not careful." The professor showed more images. Creatures with teeth as long as arms. Creatures that could run faster than any machine should move. Creatures that lived under the ground and could destroy everything in their path. "The creatures of Earth fight each other constantly," said. "They fight for food, they fight for territory, they fight just because they are near each other. This is what Earth life knows. This is all Earth life has ever known. Violence, death, survival." A student with crystal skin that caught the light raised one of her appendages. Her name had seen her in the cafeteria. She always sat alone. "How many humans live on Earth?" asked. "More than 11 billion, replied. "They cover the entire planet. They are everywhere on Earth, and they have made this death world their home." Watched as showed images of human cities. Buildings that reached so high they touched the clouds. Roads that went across entire continents. Machines that moved faster than creatures could move. Ships that floated on water or flew through the air. "Humans have taken a world that kills everything and they have survived," said. "They have not just survived. They have built civilizations. They have made art. They have created music. They have written stories." The professor paused and looked at his students. "This is what makes humans interesting," continued. "They are not the strongest species. They are not the fastest. They are not the most intelligent in simple ways, but they have something that most species do not have. They have the ability to keep trying even when things seem impossible. They have something we call persistence. This is their true weapon." Took notes. His hand moved across the tablet, writing down the professor's words. But his mind was thinking about something else. He was thinking about how right and how wrong was at the same time. The professor was right that humans were persistent. Humans did survive in a harsh world. Humans did keep trying when other species would give up. But the professor was wrong about one thing. Humans were not dangerous because of their strength or persistence alone. Humans were dangerous because they could think. Showed an image of humans working together. Dozens of them, hundreds of them, moving as one unit toward a goal, building something together, creating something that no single human could make alone. "Humans have something called cooperation," said. "They can work together in large groups, they can organize, they can plan for many years to reach a goal. This is why humans have become so powerful." Another student raised a question. This one was a blue-skinned creature with 2 eyes that pointed in different directions. His name was Tox, and he sat 3 rows in front of. "Are humans dangerous in war?" Tox asked. "If we had to fight them, would they be hard to defeat?" Was quiet for a moment, could see the professor thinking about the question. This was the question that mattered. This was the real reason was here. "Humans are dangerous," finally said. "Not because of their physical weapons or their numbers. They are dangerous because they do not think like we think. When we face an enemy that is stronger, we retreat. We calculate that retreat gives us the best chance of survival. Humans do not always do this. The professor stepped closer to the screen. His face was serious now. Humans will fight when they should retreat. Humans will sacrifice one human to save others. Humans will destroy themselves if it means hurting their enemy. This is irrational. This is not logical, but it is very effective in war. Kept writing, he kept his face calm. But inside, he felt something move in his chest, something like pride, something like sadness, something like anger. There is another thing, said. Humans are creative in ways that confuse other species. When presented with a problem, a human will not follow standard solutions. They will invent new solutions. They will try things that should not work but sometimes do. Their military has used this creativity to defeat enemies with superior technology. The class continued for another hour, showed images of human history, wars where humans defeated stronger enemies, cities where humans had survived natural disasters, moments when humans had chosen mercy instead of revenge, moments when humans had chosen forgiveness instead of hatred. When the class ended, students filed out of the room, packed his tablet slowly. He did not want to seem rushed. He did not want to seem different from the other students. He wanted to be invisible. But called him back. The professor said, "You took very detailed notes. You seem very interested in human behavior." Turned to face the professor. He kept his expression open and curious. "I find them interesting," said carefully. "Everything you said about them seems very different from what humans are actually like. I wonder why there is such a big difference." Smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "That is a good question," said. "The truth is that humans are very difficult to the weeks passed slowly, developed a routine that helped him stay hidden. He attended classes, he took notes. He participated in discussions but never spoke too much. He was a good student but not too good. He was friendly but not too friendly. He was present but not memorable." This was the skill that had gotten him selected for this mission. Humans were good at becoming invisible. Humans could be in a room full of people and no one would notice them. Humans could be hunters or prey depending on what the situation required. In the xenobiology lab, worked on a project with another student. Her name was, and she was her skin was, and her body was tall and strong. She had marks on her face that looked like scars, had learned that these marks showed her honor. The more scars, the more battles she had fought and survived. They were studying human immune systems. The work involved looking at data about how human bodies fought disease. It was boring work, but it was important. Needed to understand this. Humans would need to defend themselves against biological weapons. Understanding their own immunity was the first step. "Your species' immune system is brutal," said, looking at the data floating between them. "It attacks everything, even things that are harmless. Your body's defense system is like a military force that shoots first and asks questions later." "Humans live on a dangerous world," replied. "Their bodies learned that everything could hurt them, so they attack everything. It is not perfect, but it keeps humans alive." Looked at him closely, felt his heart move faster, but he kept his face still. "Your file says you are I," said, "but I have never heard of I in any database I have studied. Where is your world?" Had prepared for this question. He had rehearsed his answer many times. "We are a subspecies," said. "Humans adapted for specific environments. We are adapted for high radiation areas. This is why we can be around more dangerous things than baseline humans. It is genetic." It was not a complete lie. Some humans had adapted for high radiation environments. Was not one of them. But the Academy did not have detailed databases of every human subspecies. The Academy had no reason to doubt him. Studied him for a long moment, then she turned back to the data. "I wonder if your subspecies shows the same unpredictability that other humans show," she said. "If you come from a dangerous environment, you might think differently than baseline humans. You might be more logical." "We try to be logical," said. "We understand that unpredictability is threatening to other species, so we work to be predictable." "That is interesting," said. "You are saying that you change your nature to fit in with other species, that you suppress your natural behavior to match what others expect." Had not thought of it that way, but it was true. Humans did this. Humans changed themselves based on their environment and the people they were with. This was part of their survival instinct. It was adaptation at a level that went beyond genetics. It was cultural adaptation. It was psychological adaptation. "We try to get along with others," said simply. The weeks turned into months. Made friends, real friends. The crystal student who saw things in multiple light spectrums began to eat lunch with him. She was fascinated by how thought about problems. She said he saw patterns that she missed. This made uncomfortable. He did not want to be too special. He did not want to stand out. But was persistent and found himself liking her. He found himself wanting to spend time with her even though it increased his risk. Humans were like that. They formed attachments. They made connections. They did things that were not always logical because those things felt right. One day, asked him a question that made him uncomfortable. "If humans are as dangerous as the professors say," she asked, "why do you not use that danger against us? Why do you sit in class and take notes instead of trying to harm us?" They were sitting in the observation area looking out at space. The stars were beautiful here. There was no atmosphere to distort them. They looked like points of light floating in darkness. Thought about how his world looked like this too. How humans on Earth saw stars the same way. "Because danger and threat are not the same thing," said carefully. "Humans are dangerous, yes, but humans do not threaten everyone automatically. Humans choose who they threaten, and humans very often choose not to threaten anyone at all." "That does not make sense," said. "If you have the ability to harm and you choose not to, why? What is the benefit?" Looked at, her crystal form caught the light from the distant stars. He thought about how to explain something that humans understood, but that many other species did not. "In the old times, humans competed for survival," said. "Like all animals, they hunted, they fought. They protected their territory. But humans also learned something that other animals did not learn as well. They learned that working together was more powerful than fighting alone. They learned that making friends was better than making enemies. They learned that cooperation was the strongest strategy." "But that is basic evolutionary biology," said. "All species learn this at some point." "Yes," agreed. "But humans took it further. Humans learned that cooperation could include species that are not human. Humans could work with other species, could be friends with other species, could choose to not harm other species even when they had the power to do so." Processed this for a long time. Her crystal form flickered with different colors as she thought. "You are saying that humans are dangerous not because they will harm us, but because they understand us," she finally said. "They understand how we think. They understand our weaknesses, but they choose not to use that understanding for harm." "Yes," said. "That makes humans far more dangerous than the professors say," said quietly. "That makes humans terrifying." Did not disagree. This was the truth that the Academy had not fully grasped. Humans were dangerous because they could understand you. They could learn your ways, they could predict your moves, and they could still choose to be your friend. In other classes, continued to gather information. He learned about the military strategies of different species. He learned about their government systems. He learned about their culture and their values and their fears. He filed all of this away in his memory. Humans had good memories. They could hold vast amounts of information in their minds. But was also learning something else. He was learning that his prejudices about these species were wrong. He had been taught that aliens were strange and dangerous. But sitting within the observation room, he realized that she was not so different from him. She was curious. She was kind. She worried about things. She made jokes that were sometimes funny and sometimes not funny. She was a person. And this made his mission harder. Was supposed to be learning how to fight these species. He was supposed to be gathering intelligence on their weaknesses. He was supposed to be preparing for a conflict that might come someday. But instead, he was making friends. He was learning that these were good people, that they were not evil, that they were just living their lives the same way humans lived theirs. One night sat in his room and looked at the information he had collected. Tactical data, military strategies, cultural weakness, personal information about the students and professors. All of it would be valuable if there was a war. All of it could be used to hurt people. All of it could be used to hurt. Wanted to send a message to his people. He wanted to tell them about what he had learned. But the message he wanted to send was not the message he had been sent to gather. Wanted to tell them that these aliens were not monsters, that they were people. That war would be a tragedy not because it would be hard, but because it would mean destroying people who deserved to exist. But could not send that message. He did not have the authority. He was a soldier and advanced seminar was held in a smaller room. Only 15 students attended. The professor was doctor who specialized in military conflicts and species behavior during war. His body was thin and his skin was so pale it looked almost white. He moved carefully, like every motion had been calculated. Sat at the back of the room. He had enrolled in this class specifically. It was the most important class for his mission. This was where he would learn what other species truly knew about human warfare. This was where he would discover if any species had actually fought humans and lived to report it. Doctor began the lecture by talking about the border skirmishes. These were wars that had happened 20 years earlier. Several smaller civilizations had tried to expand their territory. The hegemony, which was the most powerful military force in known space, had responded by sending warships to enforce territorial claims. The border skirmishes teach us important lessons about power and logic, said. He projected images of space battles, ships firing at each other, explosions that looked like flowers blooming in the darkness. When the hegemony forces arrived at disputed territories, the smaller species had a choice, continued. They could fight and likely be destroyed, or they could surrender and likely survive. Most species chose surrender. This is logical. This is the correct choice. Took notes. He was interested in what would say about humans. However, said, one small human colony was located near one of the disputed territories. This colony was called 442b. The hegemony gave them 48 hours to evacuate. Here was the moment had been waiting for. The humans requested a meeting with the hegemony commander, said. This request was unexpected. The hegemony had no interest in negotiation, but they agreed to the meeting because refusing seemed pointless. The commander could always refuse their proposal. Pulled up a recording. It was old but clear. Saw humans entering a large chamber. A hegemony commander sat across from them. The commander's body was large and covered in armor. His face was expressionless. The humans proposed that instead of evacuating, they would serve as mediators, explained. They said that humans could understand both sides of the dispute. They could translate ideas between species. They could help both sides reach a peaceful solution. Felt something move in his chest. He knew this story. He had been told it many times, but hearing it from a perspective that was not human was strange. The hegemony commander rejected this proposal immediately, said. The commander found the idea insulting. Mediation between powers was the role of the diplomatic council. A small human colony could not fulfill this role. What did the humans do? Asked another student. This one was with hard plates covering his body like armor. They accepted the rejection, said. The humans evacuated. They did not argue. They did not protest. They simply packed their families and their possessions and left. They were logical enough to understand that they could not win this conflict, so they chose survival instead of resistance. Wrote this down, the official story, the story that other species told, but he knew it was incomplete. This is interesting because it shows human adaptability, continued. Humans do not cling to lost causes. They are able to recognize when a situation is unwinnable and they respond by adapting. This is actually one of their greatest strengths. Other species would have fought to the death. Humans chose to survive. The class moved on to other topics, but was still thinking about 442b. He was thinking about what happened after the evacuation. When the class ended, approached Doctor's desk. Professor, said, what happened to the human colony after they evacuated from 442b? Pulled up additional files. He studied them for a moment. They settled on a colony world in the Epsilon sector, said. They established agricultural operations. They created trade relationships with several other species. They maintained communication with other human colonies. By all accounts, they prospered. So they did not disappear, said. They continued to exist. They continued to matter. Yes, replied. That is actually quite typical of humans. Other species, when displaced, tend to remain displaced. They settle somewhere and they accept their new situation. But humans seem to have this drive to not just survive, but to thrive, to grow, to become important again. Nodded and gathered his materials. This is an excellent observation, said. It shows you are thinking critically about the material. The humans' evacuation from 442b was not a failure. It was a tactical retreat that allowed them to survive and prosper. This is far superior to dying stubbornly in a position that could not be held. Left the class and walked through the academy corridors. He was thinking about the full story of 442b. He was thinking about how the official story was incomplete. 10 years after evacuating, the hegemony had experienced a political crisis. Different factions within the hegemony government had disagreed about important policies. The disagreement had grown into conflict. War had seemed possible. Civil war would have destroyed the hegemony from within. And it was the humans from 442b who had prevented it. They had used their trade relationships. They had used their communication with multiple species. They had used their understanding of different cultures. They had found a solution that allowed both sides of the hegemony conflict to save face. They had mediated the solution that the hegemony commander had rejected 20 years earlier. But the hegemony government had never acknowledged this. They had given credit to official diplomatic channels. The humans' role had remained secret, and the humans had not complained. They had done what needed to be done, and they had accepted that they would not receive credit for it. This was what made humans truly dangerous, realized. It was not their weapons or their strength or their persistence. It was their ability to see solutions where others saw only conflict. It was their willingness to help even when they would not receive recognition. It was their patience, their ability to wait for the right moment to act. That evening sent an encrypted message through secure channels. The message went to human command on Earth. It took several hours to transmit because it had to pass through secret relays. It could not be intercepted. Reported what he had learned. He reported the military strategies of different alien species. He reported their weapons capabilities. He reported their vulnerabilities. But he also reported something else. He reported that humans were being studied by these species, that humans were being discussed and analyzed and understood, that the aliens were trying to prepare for a human threat that might come someday. And reported that the humans had already thought of this. Reported that the humans were preparing a response, and the humans were doing it the way humans always did things. They were gathering information. They were making friends. They were positioning themselves to understand the enemy so well that they might never have to fight. That night sat with again in the observation area. They looked out at the stars together, spoke about her hopes for the future. She spoke about the research she wanted to do. She spoke about wanting to understand other species better. Listened, and he said very little. He was thinking about how would react if she knew the truth. He was thinking about what this mission meant. He was thinking about whether the mission was right or wrong. But mostly he was thinking about being human, about what it meant to be part of a species that could do this, that could sit with a friend from another species and gather intelligence while genuinely caring about that friends, that could be preparing for war while hoping that war would never come. This was the human contradiction. This was what made humans dangerous and good at the same time. The alarm came without warning. Sirens filled the academy corridors with sounds that hurt the ears. Red lights flashed on every wall. Was in the library when he heard it. He looked up from his work table and he knew that something serious had happened. Students and staff moved quickly. Everyone moved toward the emergency zones, moved with them. He did not run. He did not show panic. Running would make him visible. He needed to stay invisible even in an emergency. A staff member was directing students into a secure chamber. The chamber was deep inside the academy, behind walls of metal and crystal that were designed to protect against weapons fire. Entered with the others. Inside the chamber, more than 30 students and 3 faculty members waited. Professor was there. He looked calm but could see that his hands were shaking slightly. "What happened?" asked Talks, the student. "A hegemony warship was attacked near the academy," replied. "The attacking vessel is a military ship. They are demanding that the academy surrender." "Surrender to what?" asked a student. "We are an educational institution. We are not a military target." "They claim we are harboring diplomatic officials," said. "Officials they want to capture." His mind was working quickly. He was analyzing the situation. A rebel faction was attacking the academy. This meant civil conflict within the government. This meant instability. This meant danger. The alarms continued. Could hear the deep rumble of weapons being fired outside the academy. The building shook. Small objects fell from shelves. "The academy's defenses are activated," one of the older professors said. "But they are designed for deterrence, not actual battle. If the rebels truly want to attack, our defenses will not stop them for long." Listen to this. He was thinking about escape routes. He was thinking about hidden weapons. He was thinking about how to survive this situation. His training had prepared him for many things, but being trapped inside a chamber while enemies attacked outside was not ideal. They will demand we surrender hostages, said. When we refuse, they will begin bombardment. This will force evacuation shuttles to launch. Those shuttles will be vulnerable in open space. The situation was becoming clear, too. The rebels wanted hostages or prisoners. The Academy wanted to save its students. The rebels wanted to create a situation where the Academy would have to choose between safety and principle. Made a decision. He knew it was a dangerous decision. He knew it would expose him. But he also knew that if he did nothing, many people in this chamber would die. He walked to the communication panel on the wall. Everyone looked at him. "Where are you going?" asked. Did not answer. He activated the panel. His fingers moved quickly across the interface. He accessed channels that a normal student should not have been able to access, but was not a normal student. He broadcast a message across all Academy systems. He broadcast it to the warship. He broadcast it to the Hegemony Defense Forces. He broadcast it to every connected system in the region. "This is Richardson," he said. His voice was calm and clear. "I am a human military operative. I am embedded in the Academy. I am speaking on behalf of the Terran Collective." In the chamber, students gasped, stood up slowly, understanding what was happening. Continued his message. He transmitted technical data, sensor readings, tactical analysis. He transmitted information about the warship's weapon systems. He transmitted information about the frequency vulnerabilities of their shield technology. He transmitted everything that a human intelligence operative would know about military hardware. "Your tactical approach relies on siege methodology," told the commander. "You believe you can pressure the Academy into surrender by threatening bombardment, but I am transmitting data that will disable your targeting systems. Your shields have a resonance frequency vulnerability at these coordinates." Sent the frequency information. "Within 90 seconds, continued, a Terran diplomatic vessel will exit jump space. It will carry ambassador and a delegation authorized to negotiate terms. If you fire on any Academy personnel in that time, you will be responsible for an act of war against the Terran Collective. If you stand down now, we can discuss your legitimate grievances through proper diplomatic channels." Ended his transmission. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the chamber shook again, but this time it was different. The shaking was from the warship, not from an impact. "Their systems are malfunctioning," said one of the older professors, reading sensor data. "Their targeting systems are offline. Their shields are fluctuating." Before they could reboot and repair their systems, a human warship appeared in space outside the Academy. It was smaller than the vessel, but it was more advanced. The human ship had weapons systems online and ready for combat. The warship powered down its weapons and requested a communication channel. In the secure chamber, silence prevailed. Every eye was on. He stood quietly, his hand still resting on the communication panel. Stepped toward him slowly. His expression was difficult to read. "Richardson," the professor said, "is that your real name?" "It is," replied. "You infiltrated our academy under false pretenses," said. "You used false credentials. You misrepresented your species' background. You gathered military intelligence." "Yes," said, "all of that is true." "And yet," said, "you just prevented a catastrophe. You stopped an attack that would have killed many students. You prevented a siege that would have trapped us for weeks or months. You saved our lives." Did not respond. He was waiting. "I should feel angry," continued. "I should feel betrayed, but instead I feel something else. I feel confused." Stepped forward. Her skin was marked with deep color showing emotion. "You used us," she said. Her voice was hard. "You gathered information on our military systems. You learned our tactical approaches. You studied our culture for intelligence purposes." "Yes," said again. "But you also became our friend," said. "You sat within the observation chamber. You worked with me in the lab. You attended classes with us. You learned about us. And I believe you actually cared about us. So I ask you directly, human, which one was true, the spy or the friend?" He looked at. He looked at the other students in the chamber. "Both were true," said. "Humans are capable of being multiple things at the same time. I am a military operative. I was sent here to gather intelligence. That part was true, but I also became your friend. I also came to care about your safety and that part was also true." "That is impossible," Talk said. "You cannot serve two masters. You cannot be loyal to your species and loyal to us simultaneously." "Humans do it all the time," said. Humans have children and careers. Humans have multiple friends with different interests. Humans can hold opposing thoughts in their minds and make peace with a contradiction. This is something that makes humans unusual. We do not require perfect consistency. A communication came through from the human warship outside. Ambassador had arrived. She was demanding to speak with the Academy leadership. She was demanding the release of any human operatives that might be inside the Academy. You must prepare for official talks, said Tu. The ambassador will negotiate terms. The rebels will be detained by hegemony forces. The Academy will suffer no military loss. What will happen to you? Asked. 3 days after the attack, the Academy held a formal assembly. The central chamber was large enough to hold everyone on the orbital platform. Students and faculty filled the rows. Above them, large screens displayed information about the incident and what had happened. Sat on the stage. Beside him sat Professor and Ambassador. The Ambassador was a human woman with hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been trained to negotiate with alien species. She had been trained to represent humanity in situations where humans were neither clearly friends nor clearly enemies. The events of the past days were extraordinary, Ambassador addressed the assembly. A military operative was embedded in this academy. He gathered intelligence. He studied your culture. He learned your tactical methods. The assembly was silent. However, continued, the Terran Collective has authorized me to explain the reasoning behind this operation. We did not send Richardson here with hostile intent. We sent him here because we believe that true understanding comes from direct experience. An older faculty member stood up. You sent a military spy to an educational institution. This is a violation of the diplomatic accords. Yes, agreed. It is. And the Terran Collective takes full responsibility for this violation. However, we would like to propose a different way of looking at what happened. She gestured toward. Richardson was sent to this academy to learn, said. He was sent to understand how other species perceive humans. He was sent to gather information that might be valuable for future relations between species. But what actually learned was something far more important. He looked out at the assembly. I have spent 30 years studying human behavior, said. I have taught that humans are dangerous, that humans are unpredictable, that humans prioritize emotional responses over logical ones. I have taught that humans are difficult to understand and dangerous to negotiate with. He paused. I was right about some of these things, continued. Humans are different from most species. They do make choices that seem illogical from a purely mathematical perspective. They do prioritize things that other species consider irrelevant, but I was incomplete in my understanding. Looked at. Richardson was assigned to infiltrate this academy, said. He was assigned to spy on us. He did spy on us. He learned our culture. He learned our military capabilities. He learned our weaknesses, but he also did something else. He became our friend. He participated in our community. He cared about and when his people were threatened, he prevented casualties instead of causing them. Stood next. Her skin was still marked with the colors of emotion. Deceived us, said. In my culture, deception is one of the greatest sins. Deception is treated as a betrayal that can only be resolved through combat or death. The assembly tensed. However, continued, I have thought about his behavior over the past days. He was assigned to gather intelligence. He did his duty. But when a conflict arose, he did not use that intelligence to harm us. He used it to protect us. He chose loyalty to people he had befriended over loyalty to a mission he had been assigned. This is not deception. This is integrity. Her crystal form caught the light and refracted it into different colors. I liked before I knew he was human, said. I liked him because he was kind, because he was thoughtful, because he seemed to understand things that I understood in ways that other beings did not. When I learned that he was a spy, I felt hurt. But then I realized something. Kindness was not a spy technique. His understanding was not gathered intelligence. His friendship was real. The assembly began to shift. The mood changed from suspicion to something more complex. Ambassador spoke again. The Terran Collective is prepared to make several proposals. First, Richardson will remain at the Academy, but now openly as a human diplomatic observer. Second, we are prepared to share certain military and technological information with the Academy in exchange for information that we seek. Third, we propose that the Academy establish a program where students from all species can study human culture directly from humans themselves. You want to establish your own spy school, said the student who had asked questions during his lecture. No, said. We want to establish a place where understanding can grow naturally, where humans and other species can learn from each other, where spies are not needed because information is shared openly. Stepped forward again. I propose that we accept this offer, said. I propose that the Academy not only accept as a human observer, but that we also our entire curriculum. I propose that we teach not just about human behavior, but about human values, about human creativity, about human ability to find meaning in chaos. Why would we teach that? Asked a student. Because, said, if we understand why humans do what they do, if we understand that they are not driven purely by logic or survival instinct, but by something deeper that we might call meaning or purpose, then we understand them far better. And understanding is always safer than ignorance. The assembly voted. The decision was nearly unanimous, would remain at the Academy. The Academy would establish new courses on human culture and values. The Terran Collective would establish a diplomatic embassy on the orbital platform. That evening, sat with and several other students who had become his friends. They sat in the observation area looking out at space. A human warship was visible in the distance. In the other direction, a vessel was being escorted away by hegemony ships. Will you really stay? Asked. Yes, said. My command has approved my continuing presence here, but now I will do my job openly. I will teach you about humans, and I will learn from you about your species. Does this feel like success to you? Asked. Your mission seems incomplete. You gathered intelligence, yes, but you did not return it to your command. You did not complete a military operation. Thought about this? He thought about the official training he had received. He thought about what his handlers had expected him to report. My mission was to understand how you perceive humans, said. I understand now. You see us as dangerous but also creative. You see us as unpredictable but also adaptable. You see us as emotional but also capable of loyalty that transcends logic. He paused. I have completed my mission, continued. But more importantly, I have learned something else. I have learned that humans understand through connection. We do not just gather facts, we live with the facts. We become part of the world we are studying. And by doing that, we change both ourselves and the world around us. Tox, who had also joined the group, asked a question. Do you think there will ever be a real conflict between humans and the rest of the galaxy? Was quiet for a long time. I believe conflict is always possible, finally said. Different species have different values. Different species have different needs. Conflict is possible, but I also believe that understanding makes conflict less likely, and humans have always been better at understanding than at fighting. He gestured toward the window where the stars were visible. Humans come from a world where everything is trying to kill them, continued. They evolved as prey and as predator simultaneously. They learned that survival meant understanding your enemy. It meant predicting what the enemy would do. It meant sometimes making peace with enemies when fighting would destroy you both. Turned to his friends. This is what humans are truly good at, he said. We are good at understanding. We are good at seeing the other perspective. We are good at finding ways to live together even when it seems impossible. This is our real strength, not our weapons or our tactics or our intelligence. Our strength is in our ability to connect. The friends sat together in silence, looking out at the stars. Tomorrow would begin teaching his first class. He would explain human culture to alien students. He would help them understand why humans did what they did. He would help them see humans not as mysterious threats, but as people who valued the same things they valued. Connection, understanding, meaning. Richardson had come to the Academy as a spy. He had been assigned to infiltrate and gather intelligence. But in the end, he had done something far more important. He had become a bridge between species. He had shown that understanding did not require deception. That friendship did not require shared genetics. That peace was always possible when beings were willing to truly listen to each other. As he looked out at the galaxy, thought about Earth. He thought about how his people had learned to survive on a harsh world. He thought about how they had developed the ability to understand other creatures. He thought about how this understanding had eventually allowed them to reach beyond their world and find others like themselves. The work of understanding was not finished. There would be more conflicts. There would be more misunderstandings. There would be more moments when different species did not see each other clearly. But tonight, In this observation chamber with friends from species he had once seen only as potential enemies, understood something that went beyond any intelligence report. Understanding was not something you gathered and stored. Understanding was something you lived. It was something you built with other beings, moment by moment, choice by choice. It was the slow work of becoming more than you had been before. It was the most human thing that any species could do. And sitting with his alien friends looking out at an infinite galaxy, finally understood what his real mission had always been. It was not to gather intelligence about other species. It was to gather intelligence about humanity itself. To understand what humans were truly capable of. To understand that humans were not monsters or creatures or unpredictable anomalies. Humans were builders of bridges. Humans were seekers of understanding. Humans were creatures who refused to accept that any conflict was unresolvable if you were willing to truly listen. This was the lesson that the Academy had not taught. This was the lesson that had learned. And this was the lesson that he would now teach. "I will be debriefed," said. "I will report to my command. I will provide information about everything I learned here." And then asked, "Will you return? Will you continue your studies?" Did not know the answer to this question. The mission had ended when he revealed himself. He did not know what would come next. "I hope I return," said finally. "But I understand if the Academy no longer wants me here. I understand if my presence is no longer welcome." Was quiet for a long moment, then he smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "You saved our lives," said. "Whatever your original motivation, whatever intelligence you gathered, you prevented a disaster. I'm not sure if that makes you a good spy or a bad spy, but it makes you a good person." Ants could be many things simultaneously. They could be predator and prey. They could be hunter and protector. They could be spy and friend. And they could do all of these things while staying exactly true to what they really were. Followed orders, he would continue his mission. He would continue gathering intelligence, and he would wait for orders from home. But he would also continue being's friend. He would continue listening to theories about human adaptation. He would continue sitting in professors' classes and learning about how humans were perceived. Because humans were good at living double lives. Humans could be many things at once. Humans could be hunters and friends. Humans could be dangerous and kind. Humans could gather intelligence while building real relationships. This was the real truth about humans. This was what made them truly powerful. They could be whoever they needed to be while remaining exactly who they were. Understand, they do things that seem random. They make choices that seem wrong. But when you study them carefully, you understand that they are not random. They are just following rules that are not the same as our rules. Nodded, he understood this. He understood that humans followed rules that other species could not see. "Maybe," said, "the most important thing to understand about humans is that they see the universe differently. They look at problems and see solutions where we see defeat. They look at enemies and see possible allies where we see only danger." Said nothing, but he was thinking about what the professor had said. He was thinking about how to use this information. He was thinking about his real mission. He was here to learn what aliens thought about humans. He was here to understand how they saw his people. He was here to find the weaknesses in their thinking. And then he would send this information back to his people. His people who were sitting in plain sight among the aliens. His people who were learning everything they needed to learn. His people who were waiting for the right moment to act. Gathered his materials and left the room. He walked back through the cold metal corridors. Other students passed him. None of them looked at him closely. None of them saw what he really was. By the time he reached his room, understood something new. Understanding your enemy meant becoming like them for a while. It meant sitting in their classes. It meant listening to their lectures. It meant pretending to be one of them while remaining completely separate. This was what humans were best at. This was what made them truly dangerous. They could hide anywhere, and nobody would ever know.